In 1991, one of the largest air forces in the world simply stopped flying. Not because it was shot out of the sky, because within 72 hours of the war starting, every Iraqi fighter pilot understood the same thing. Taking off meant dying. So they didn't. Some of their best jets were flown to Iran for safekeeping and never came back. Their planes sat on runways, fully fueled, fully armed, completely useless. That same week, a single American F-117 flew directly over Baghdad's air defenses and dropped a bomb through the roof of a building while every radar operator in the city stared at an empty screen. Same sky, same night. Completely different realities. That's the thing nobody tells you about fighter jets. Owning one and controlling the air above your own country are two completely separate purchases, and the gap between them is wider than almost anyone outside a defense ministry understands. One country spends $30 million and believes it has an air force. Another spends tens of billions and quietly removes the other side's ability to even consider a fight. Today we're breaking down all 7 levels of that ladder. From the cheapest armed jet a small nation can put in the air, to the systems that decide whether a war is winnable before it ever starts. And before I start, I already know someone is going to comment that these are generations, not levels. Someone else is going to say I ranked them wrong, or that I forgot the MiG-25, or the Su-57, or their personal favorite. Save it. We're here for the hierarchy of what these things actually do, not the spotter's guide. Let's get into it. Level 1. The entry point. Light attack and lead-in trainers. This is where most small air forces begin, and it's designed to feel like real air power long before it actually is. We're talking about jets like the BAE Hawk, the KAI FA-50, the Leonardo M346, the L-39, and L-159. Lightweight, single or twin seat, modest radar, a handful of hardpoints. Flyaway cost runs roughly $25 to $40 million. Operating cost is low by fighter standards, somewhere in the range of $5,000 to $10,000 per flight hour. These aircraft are genuinely useful. They train pilots. They patrol borders. They handle counterinsurgency where the enemy has no air defense worth the name. The problem is what they are not. Put one of these against a modern fighter with a modern radar and a modern missile, and the engagement is over before the level 1 pilot knows it started. He never sees the aircraft that kills him. Who flies this? The small nation that needs to be able to say it has a jet combat capability. The government that wants its airspace to look defended on a map. The Air Force building a pilot pipeline because you cannot skip straight to the expensive jets without somewhere to learn. It is the equivalent of the founder posting the photo before the company is real. It looks like a rival. It is not a rival. And everyone at the next level up knows the difference on sight. Level 2. Legacy fast jets. Second and third generation, still flying. This is where a country has a real supersonic fighter and discovers that the airframe is older than the pilot's father. The MiG-21, the F-5, early MiG-23s, the Mirage 3 and F-1, the Chinese J-7. These are Cold War designs, many of them acquired secondhand, kept alive for decades because replacing them costs more than a small country's entire defense budget. Purchase price on the used market can be shockingly low, $5 to $20 million for a flyable jet. The real cost is keeping it in the air. Spare parts come from cannibalizing other airframes. Some of these fleets are maintained by stripping museum pieces. Here's the honest reality. A level 2 fighter is a real fighter. It goes supersonic. It carries missiles. In the right hands, against the wrong opponent, it still kills. But against anything from level 3 onward, the radar can't see far enough, the missiles can't reach far enough, and the pilot is fighting a war that ended technologically before he was born. Who flies this? The nation that inherited a fleet from a superpower that no longer exists and cannot afford to walk away from it. This is the level where the difference between having an air force and having a credible air force becomes brutally clear, and where most countries quietly realize they need to start spending real money. Level 3. The 4th generation workhorse. This is where air defense actually begins. The F-16, the MiG-29, the Mirage 2000, the Chinese J-10, the backbone of nearly every serious air force on Earth. Purchase price runs roughly $30 to $70 million depending on configuration. An F-16 costs somewhere around $22,000 to $27,000 per flight hour to operate, which by fighter standards is considered cheap. That word matters. We will come back to it. At this level, the jet does everything. Air to air, air to ground, Reconnaissance. It has a radar that sees a meaningful distance and missiles that engage beyond visual range, meaning you can kill an enemy aircraft before you can see it out the canopy. This is the level where a country stops merely patrolling its sky and starts being able to contest it against a peer. The F-16 specifically is the sweet spot of the entire global fighter market. Enough capability, enough range, reasonable cost, flown by dozens of nations, upgraded continuously for 50 years. Most air forces settle here and never move up, and most of them will tell you the same thing. They didn't buy 4th-gen fighters to win dogfights. They bought them so the other side has to assume those fighters exist and plan around them. That is the entire product from this level onward, not the kill, the fact that you might get the kill. Level 4. Generation 4.5, the networked multi-role fighter. This is where the jet stops being a platform and becomes a node. The Dassault Rafale, the Eurofighter Typhoon, the Boeing F/A-18 Super Hornet, the Gripen E, the F-15EX. These are not stealth aircraft, and that is the entire point. They are 4th-generation airframes carrying 5th-generation electronics, modern AESA radar, encrypted data links, sensor fusion that fuses what every friendly aircraft sees into one shared picture. Purchase price climbs hard here, $80 to over $130 million per aircraft fully equipped. Operating cost varies wildly by design philosophy. The F-15EX runs around $29,000 per hour. The Rafale, built deliberately around low running costs, operates closer to $15,000 to $22,000 per hour, despite costing nearly as much to buy as a stealth fighter. What changes at this level is the mission. The jet sees and shares far more than it shoots. One Rafale orbiting at altitude is feeding targeting data to ships, ground units, and other aircraft. It is less a fighter and more a flying piece of infrastructure that happens to be armed. Who flies this? France, the UK, India, the Gulf states, the US Navy off-carrier decks. Most of them will tell you they bought these aircraft for the same reason the Level 3 buyers did, only more so. Not to start a fight, to make the cost of starting one unacceptable to anyone doing the math on the other side. Level 5. 5th generation. Stealth. This is where the conversation stops being about the airframe and starts being about not being seen. The F-35, the F-22 Raptor, China's J-20, Russia's Su-57. The F-35A has a flyaway cost around $82 million and operates at roughly $42,000 per flight hour, and over 1,000 have been delivered across more than 15 operators. The F-22 is in a different category entirely. Adjusted for inflation, its flyaway cost approaches $200 million. Its operating cost sits around $85,000 per flight hour, and it has never been exported to anyone. Not allies, not partners. The United States built 187 and decided the rest of the world would never fly one. Below this level, you fly to be in the fight. At this level, you fly to be the reason the other side never sees the fight coming. Stealth is not invisibility. It is the compression of the enemy's decision time down to nothing. First look, first shot, first kill. And the other pilot dies still believing the sky is empty. And this is the first level where access is not about money. It is about politics. You do not buy your way into a 5th-generation fleet. You are allowed in, based on alliance, based on trust, based on whether the country that builds the jet wants you flying it. Plenty of nations could write the check. Very few are handed the pen. The aircraft is no longer the product. Admission to the club that flies it is. Level 6. 6th generation. The programs. This is where the jet stops being a jet and becomes the brain of a formation. The American F-47, which Boeing was awarded in March 2025 with a first flight targeted around 2028, a planned buy of at least 185 aircraft, a combat radius reportedly beyond 1,000 nautical miles, and per-unit estimates that have run as high as $300 million, the Trilateral GCAP program, the UK, Italy, and Japan, targeting service entry around 2035. Europe's FCAS, which as of early 2026 is reportedly tangled in industrial and political disputes that have pushed its timeline out by decades. China is developing its own. So is everyone who can. What separates this level from everything below it is not speed and not even stealth, though it has both. It is that the aircraft is designed from the first sketch to command a formation of uncrewed aircraft. The pilot is no longer just a shooter. He is a decision-maker directing a team of machines that fly into the places too dangerous to risk a human and a $300 million airframe. Who operates at this level? Only nations that can sustain a multi-decade, multi-billion-dollar industrial base without flinching. The United States has committed something on the order of $8.5 billion to the F-47 effort by the end of the current fiscal year alone. This is no longer a procurement. It is a national-scale bet on what the next 40 years of air combat looks like, and most countries on Earth are simply not invited to place it. Level 7, the final level. The system, not the airplane. Forget the jet. At level 7, the fighter is the least important part of the fighter. This is the family of systems. The crewed 6th-generation aircraft is the quarterback, and around it flies a fleet of collaborative combat aircraft, the Loyal Wingman drones. The American program alone targets something like 1,000 of them, at roughly $25 to $30 million each, designs like the General Atomics YFQ-42 and the Anduril YFQ-44, both of which made their first flights in late 2025. Wrap that in space-based sensors, AI-driven targeting, electronic warfare, and a battle management network connecting ships, satellites, ground stations, and every aircraft in the sky into a single organism. At this level, air superiority is not an aircraft you own. It is a question the other side has to answer before they consider doing anything at all. And the answer they keep arriving at is no. Who exists here? A very short list of nations. They are not buying fighter jets. They are buying the ability to make a war unwinnable for the other side before it begins, which means buying the ability to make sure it never begins at all. The aircraft is incidental. The deterrence is the product. The plane is just the part you can photograph. Private aviation sells you time. Super yachts sell you a world with no one else in it. Fighter jets sell you something even less negotiable. A small nation with a single light attack jet and a superpower with 1,000 drone air combat network are, at the core, doing the same thing. They are both buying a vote in their own sovereignty. One is buying the appearance of that vote. The other is buying the ability to make sure no one else ever gets a vote on theirs. Every other industry sells you a product. Air power sells you the only thing a country cannot improvise once the shooting starts, the right to decide what happens in the sky above its own ground. Lose that, and every other thing you own, the territory, the cities, the people, sits underneath someone else's airplanes. The jet was never the point. Who controls the sky is. Everything on the ground is just waiting to find out who does. If this was useful, subscribe. I break down how things actually work, not how the brochure describes them. See you in the next one.